No, Ursula, I will not give you any advice on how to save Europe. 20 years ago, you could have nipped this in the bud, and you didn't. So deal with this yourself. I'm not going to give you any advice. Stupid. Oh, hey guys. And see you there. Just got a call from someone in Europe named Ursula, and she was asking me for advice on how to save Europe. She said, Mark, please give me advice on how I can save this continent. And I said, no. 20 years ago, you had a chance to nip this in the bud, and you didn't. So, I'm not going to help you now. Dum-dum. Guys, some people are just so dumb. Don't you agree? Smash like if you think some people in this world are just dumb. You can call them dum-dums. Do you know any dum-dums like Ursula? So, do you know what that means? To nip something in the bud? To nip in the bud means to stop a problem at the beginning before it becomes a big problem. Okay? Have you ever done this? Have you ever seen something maybe in your own life, something in the world, something in your friends, something's going to be a big problem, and you want to try to stop it at the beginning, and so you nip it in the bud? That means you prevent something from becoming a problem, a big problem, right? That's called to nip it in the bud, to nip something in the bud. What is a bud? A bud is the first phase of a leaf or a flower. You know, when a leaf is growing or a flower is growing, before the flower blooms or before the leaf, you know, comes out of its bud, it's in this little thing called the bud. So that thing is called the bud. It's not spring here right now. Getting toward fall. It's August right now. So you can see these leaves. There are no buds. Are there any buds? There's no buds on here, guys. Look at these full leaves, right? So in spring, you see a lot of buds. It's kind of nice, right? Do you love spring? I love spring, guys. It's just, spring is beautiful. So that's what a bud is. If you nip something, to nip means to like pinch, to squeeze something, or to bite. You know, maybe a dog nips you. That means the dog kind of bites you a little bit. In this case, to nip something in the bud means to, you know, imagine there was a, like, let me think of it, let me look at it. Imagine there's like a, so look at this thing here, okay? Imagine this were a bud, this little thing here, right? So I want to stop this from growing, right? So I just like, let's say I just kind of like pick it up. Oh, I didn't nip it in the bud, but you get the idea. Let's say, you know, if you don't want a flower to grow, you don't want a leaf to grow, you can pull off the bud, and then you stop, you know, the flower from growing, right? So then you nip it in the bud. I'll give you some examples, all right? So let's say you have a dog, a pet dog, and the dog is showing signs of aggression, right? The dog, let's say, is it's an aggressive dog, right? So one day you go to the park and your dog attacks some people and really injures them, okay? Now, you know, the police will probably come and will say, your dog was so aggressive. Like, is this the first time your dog has been so aggressive? And you might lie and you might say, yes, officer, this is the first time my dog has ever shown any signs of aggression. You know, the officer will probably say, I don't believe you. You should have nipped this in the bud before it became a big problem for everyone, right? So, you know, at the beginning when your dog was starting to show signs of aggression, you should have dealt with the problem then and there. Not waited and gone to the park and finally at that point, the problem has become too big, you know. In that situation, you know, I think in Canada, most of the time the dog gets put down. Put down means, you know, the dog gets killed, right? You know, because if the dog really hurts people, that's completely unacceptable, right? Nobody wants to live in a country where dogs can just go free and hurt many people. There has to be some consequences, right? But you know, the owners of the pets, if your pet is showing signs of aggression, you need to nip it in the bud then and there. That means at that time, right? If you let it get, you know, out of control, you know, it's gonna hurt people, right? So there's an example. You know, parents often do this also with their children when they're raising their children. You know, parents they'll correct their children before the child's behavior becomes a big problem for people, right? Maybe your child is talking back to you. To talk back means to say like, no, mom, no, dad, I'm not going to do that. Okay? And that's not good behavior, right? And so, like, you know, what do parents usually do in that situation? Parents usually nip it in the bud. They say, you will never talk to me that way again. Do you understand? Right? That's what they say, right? So they nip it in the bud, right? What other examples can we give you, guys? I just said we. It's not we, it's just me. Just me here in Mad English TV. What other examples can I give you? I'm gonna hide behind this leaf. Can you still see me? Have you ever nipped anything in the bud? So we can also use this for health related issues like diseases. Let's say you develop a disease. If you catch the disease early, it might be possible to reverse the disease, right? And so it's important, if you get sick, if you're getting seriously ill, you need to nip it in the bud before it becomes extremely bad, right? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, you could say, my friend got cancer, but fortunately she nipped it in the bud before it got out of control. So maybe she changed her diet, maybe she changed her lifestyle, maybe she turned it around, so now she's cancer free, right? So that's what it means to nip something in the bud. Can you hear the train? The train is going past. What other example could we give? To nip something in the bud. You give me some examples down in the comments, guys. What are some examples that you can come up with to nip in the bud? Let's say, just gonna go through these trees here. Gonna wait for the train to go by. It's kind of nice hearing train horns, isn't it? It's kind of a cool feeling. To nip something in the bud. It could be like if there's a bad habit. Let's say you're starting to develop a bad habit of going to bed too late. Like me. I have a bad habit of going to bed too late. So, what you should do is just stop your bad habit early and before it gets really bad before you start getting sick, right? Because, you know, if you have a bad lifestyle, it usually results in some kind of illness, right? So, you know, it's better to nip it in the bud. Anything. We can use this idiom for literally anything. All right, it could be, like I said, a health issue. It could be something with your kids. It could be, you know, pets. It could be government stuff. If your country is going in the wrong direction, let's say your country has implemented a policy, and that policy is now, it's becoming clear that the policy is really bad. It's bringing the country down. So then when the country starts to go down, you know, you need to nip it in the bud. You say, okay, you know, this policy is hurting our country, and we thought it was a good idea at the time, but now it's showing results and it's proving to be not a good idea. So we need to nip it in the bud. We need to just, you know, we need to just accept our mistake and not double down on it, right? Because if you double down, that means you're stubborn. You get stubborn, right? And very often politicians, they do this. They double down. They say, they make a policy. They say, okay, we're going to do this, whatever it is. And then it's really bad for the country. And then they try to justify that. And they say, you know, no, what we need is to do more of this. So that's called doubling down. When you do something bad, or you make a certain, you say something, you make a certain decision, and then you do even more of that thing. You double down. In life, guys, we very often, we double down when we should just admit our mistakes, be humble, and say, you know what, I made a mistake. I did this, I did that, or I hurt you, I'm sorry. You know, we need to be humble people, right? And instead of doubling down and trying to justify ourselves when maybe we were the ones to cause the problem, right? So, you know, politicians, they never nip things in the bud. They are the bud that should be nipped by the people, right? The people should say, okay, we elected this person. Yeah, we're gonna nip that person in the bud. Get rid of them, right? So, guys, people are walking past with their dog. I just finished talking about dogs and people. People not taking care of their dogs, but that dog was friendly, didn't bite me. All right, so anyway, guys, that's, you know, that basically, you get the idea, right? To nip something in the bud just means to stop something before it gets really bad. So, you know, before it gets out of control, because sometimes things in problems in life, they get so like overgrown that it's hard to nip it in the bud at that time, right? You know, it's almost like, here's another example, like maybe like imagine you have a toenail. You know, your nail on your toe, that's your fingernail, right? Fingernail, your toenails. You know, sometimes people, if they don't clip their toenails, the toenails become ingrown. It means the toenail is kind of growing into your toe, and that's really painful, right? And so if you're starting to get an ingrown toenail, you know, it might become so bad that you can't even walk anymore, and it might become infected. So what you need to do is you need to nip it in the bud at the beginning, right? So this idea of to nip something in the bud means you act immediately at the beginning, and you deal with the problem then and there, so that it doesn't grow and become like overgrown or overblown, right? So there it is, guys, to nip something in the bud. Give me your examples. Have you ever nipped something in the bud in your life? I'm sure everybody has. So give me some examples that you have done in your life. And you know, I told you the literal meaning would be to pick a bud. Now, I don't know why anybody would do that. because most people like flowers, right? Why would you want to stop a flower from growing or a leaf from growing? I love leaves, guys. I love flowers. I would never nip a real bud in the bud. Did you say that? I nipped that bud in the bud. You're mixing the literal and the and the metaphorical meaning here. I nipped that bud in the bud. If you don't want the flower to grow, you could say I nipped that bud in the bud. So anyway, to nip something, you put that thing in the middle and then in the bud. So I nipped that problem in the bud. I nipped the bad attitude in the bud. I nipped that bad habit in the bud. I nipped anything in the bud. Sometimes I think people get confused and they think the word is butt. You nipped something in the butt, like you imagine a dog biting someone's butt. You know, that dog nipped me in the butt. You could say that. The dog nipped me in the butt. Imagine a dog is running behind you and it nips you in the butt. Then that would literally mean a dog bites you in the butt with T, 2 T's, right? But if we're talking about this, the meaning to stop something before it becomes a big problem, then the word is not but, it's bud with a D. But I think even some native English speakers maybe get that confused. Maybe they think it's nip something in the butt. Because, you know, the word bud and butt kind of sound very similar, right? Can you hear a difference? Bud, butt. Bud, butt. You know, some people don't you know, aspirate their T's. They don't have the end sound. They don't do that. They just say, they especially Americans have a tendency to not say the T at the end of a word. Like a word like, they would say but for but. They say just, they don't give it some air at the end. That's called aspiration. Okay. They just say but, or what are some other words? You know, foot. They would just say foot, or meat. Do you love eating meat? They would say meat. So a lot of Americans do not aspirate their T's. You know, so then it's hard to hear the difference between bud and butt. If they say bud, yeah, it's hard. It would be hard to hear the difference. So I understand if people make this mistake, you know, it's because they think they're hearing one word, but it's bud, not butt. So guys, hope you have a great day. Hope you learned something new in this video. Let me know your thoughts. As always, I love you so much, and I'll see you over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.